Hello, my name is Bree McCarroll. I am the founder and principal therapist for New England Hold Me Tight. In my retreats and my workshops, I oftentimes talk about the biology of our relationships and what's happening biologically that is helping us establish, healthy, good relationships and also what's not working at times. It is due to that I decided I want to actually develop a 4-part blog series on the biology of our relationships and what's happening in our connections. So this is the first of the 4. The information I'm presenting right now is based on research in human development in general, and specifically it's work that was done by Dr. Sue Johnson. She is the creator of emotionally focused therapy, and she also developed the protocol that I use for my workshops, the Hold Me Tight workshops. So if after this video you are curious to learn more and have a little bit more in-depth understanding of the information I'm presenting, then definitely I encourage you to read Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. So this first video is going to be just about the bare bones basic, where we come from and how we are first getting attached. So many times as couples, we meet someone and we become entranced by them, and then we eventually get into a relationship and we kind of don't really know what happened that actually caused that to happen. But it's not like it's magic. It may feel that way, but it's not. There's actually truly a science behind it, and that's what I'm going to discuss right now. It all comes down to the fact of biology. From day one, we are hardwired as social beings to actually biologically attach to someone else. We are born helpless, where we are not able to defend ourselves, we're not able to take care of ourselves. And so as social mammals, we are just hardwired in that we are doing things as infants to encourage an attachment, and also we are doing things as adults, as caregivers, to potentially attach to our offspring. And this attachment that we know of commonly between adults and infants, that is something that there's been a lot of research about. We get it. Again, obviously we're social beings. We understand that. We understand that we can't take care of ourselves. The interesting thing about that, though, is that research has shown that as much as that is old news, we've had that information for almost a century, that actually the attachment that we know occurs between caregivers and their offspring, that is actually very similar to the attachment that happens in our romantic relationships, in our love relationships. So I think that's great news because it makes it much easier for us to understand, right? Definitely. So I'm going to talk a little bit using that paradigm. I'm going to talk a little bit about the attachment that we have between a caregiver or a parent and an infant, and then compare that to what happens in our adult love relationships so that you can make more sense of it. So again, from the get-go, from day one, the infant, they are born, they are helpless, and their mind is responding to that environment. As the infant, if they are alone, their brain is saying, oh my goodness, this is dangerous because I can't take care of myself. I can't defend myself. Danger, danger, danger. I might die. It's not thinking that consciously, obviously, but things are getting triggered. And so in the end, the brain is saying, this is not okay. And likewise, when the baby is connecting with an adult, with a caregiver, the brain is saying, okay, this feels safe, this is good. And that is how attachment starts. There are actually 4 components for attachment, for loving bond. And again, I'm going to kind of use the paradigm between the caregiver and a child with 2 adults. So the first component that needs to happen between a parent or a caregiver and a child is there need to be positive interactions. What does that look like? That is the caregiver, and just so you know, I'm talking mothers, fathers, caregivers. I'm going to be using the words interchangeably, so please don't get defensive or reactive. I'm going to be using all those words, okay? But you get what I'm talking about. So that caregiver has a positive interaction when they are picking up the infant, and maybe they're just like inhaling that wonderful baby smell. That's a positive interaction. When they kind of tickle the infant and the infant kind of looks up at them and smiles, even if it's gas, we don't know, but still that's a positive interaction. When the caregiver maybe gives their finger to the infant and the infant wraps their little hand around it, positive interaction. And likewise for the infant, when they first see this adult and they see this big breast and they get fed, oof, that's a positive interaction. That feels good. Also, that skin-to-skin contact, that warmth, again, positive interaction. So all that is good stuff. That is one of the first components that happens that encourages a loving bond or a secure attachment between a parent and a child. So between two adults, when we are creating a loving bond, what does positive interactions look like? Guess. Okay, I can't hear you, so I'm going to tell you some answers. So positive interactions are like those date nights. It's going out together, having fun. It's having a stimulating conversation. It's possibly walking quietly without any conversation, but being together. It could be watching a movie. It could be rollerblading together. It could be singing to one another. It can be looking at each other. Those are positive interactions, and that is one of the components that we do as adults to work on creating that loving bond, and it's essential for a secure attachment with our relationships, within our relationship. So again, going back to the caregiver and the infant, the second component that is necessary for a loving relationship or secure attachment is oxytocin. You may have heard of that word as far as it's often called the cuddle hormone, and it is released when a mother is nursing. It's actually released even when the child is first born, especially if it's a vaginal birth. And so what oxytocin does is it's nature's way of giving a little kind of a feel-good drug to us, and encourages that biological attachment to happen. So when the mother is nursing the infant, she gets this wonderful release of hormone that kind of slows down her heartbeat, slows down the stress hormones. It feels good, it's soothing, and that is happening. That is reinforcing her nursing her child. Likewise, even the father or the other caregivers, as they are picking up the infant, not immediately, it's not released immediately, but research has shown that if there's a consistent person that is connecting with that child and picking them up with that skin-to-skin contact, that person also will be developing also that oxytocin release. And again, that is encouraging that connection, that positive interaction with the infant, which builds a secure bond. For the infant also, they also get that oxytocin release. When they are being nursed and they get that breast milk, oxytocin is being released. Also, when they are having that skin-to-skin contact with the caregiver, oxytocin is being released. So it's encouraging that infant also to bond with the adult. And in our romantic love relationships, what does that oxytocin release look like? You may have guessed it. The one way that we get a big dose of oxytocin is when we are sexually intimate with our partners. That is why our sexual relationship is really a significant thing in our maintaining our relationships. That being said, we also develop oxytocin when we do other things with our partner. It could be when we're holding hands. It could be when our partner is just putting their hand like on our back or on our knee. It can even be when we are just looking at our partner. It can even be when our partner is not around, but maybe we're reading an email or a text from them and we're just like, oh, oxytocin still released. That is why we want those different kinds of connections with our partners, because it keeps nourishing that loving bond, and it keeps just reinforcing that attachment that we're having with our partner. Okay? So we've got 2 for 2 right now. So the third component that we need as far as between a parent and an infant is we need consistency. And that means if this happens, then that happens. It's just the if-thens, that happening consistently. So that could be like, as a parent, I know if my infant is crying and I pick them up and I hold them this way, the infant stops. Maybe it means I'm trying to figure out how to feed this kid and this kid's not latching onto my breast. What do? Oh, I know if I hold my infant this certain way, the kid can eat. Awesome. Yay, that's consistency. It's a win. Likewise for the infant, for them, it's like knowing, oh, every time I see this nipple or I see this bottle, oof, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to get satiated with some food. Another example of consistency can be, gosh, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, I get this sensation of wetness and I scream this way, I get that response that things are changed and all of a sudden I don't feel that irritation anymore because my diaper's changed. Okay? So that's with parents and the infants. And as far as between 2 adults, as they are developing a secure attachment or a loving bond, what does that consistency look like? Again, it's that if this happens, then that happens. So looking at my own relationship, I know that when I come home, if I say, hey, hello, I know I'm going to get a response. That is very consistent. I can count on that. I also know that if I say, hey, I really need some help, I know I'm going to get that help. That is very consistent. So it's those if-thens that I know I can count on. That's consistency. And that is what we need in our relationships. We need to be able to know if this happens, then that's going to happen. Because that helps give us that comfort. So that helps us have that security and helps that loving bond. The fourth thing that we need, and the final thing that we need in creating a secure attachment between a parent and an infant and our own romantic relationships, is we need that predictability. And that happens when we have that consistency. When we have enough consistency happening in our relationships, we get that predictability. So for the parent and the infant, they cannot know every single thing that's going to happen. There's going to be all kinds of interactions. But the parent knows, gosh, I have enough consistent success and positive interactions with this infant. I know I can do this, and I feel really good about this relationship. I can predict that things are going to come up, but I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to be able to take care of this baby. Likewise, for the infant, nothing can be predicted per se, because we're not magical, but the infant knows, gosh, there's been enough situations where I felt safe, I felt secure, I felt satiated, that I can look at this being and I can feel, I can predict that things are going to be okay. So again, that helps develop and maintain that secure relationship. Between 2 adults, what does that look like? Same thing. When you have enough consistency going on, then you can predict. And that means that maybe relationships are unpredictable in specifics, but maybe enough things have happened so that you're feeling safe enough, you're feeling secure enough that you can predict, gosh, we may go through some hard times, but we're going to be okay. Or I know that my partner's going to be there for me no matter what. I can predict that because I have that history of things consistently happening. So again, just a very quick review. For a secure relationship, for a loving bond, doesn't matter whether it's with an adult and a baby or 2 adults, what you need, positive interactions, oxytocin, consistency, predictability. For homework, not for homework per se, but as an activity, I would love for you to think about your own relationship and think about what are you doing that is helping to either develop a loving relationship or a loving bond, or is maybe maintaining that right now. So think about those 4 components and think about what are you doing that is helpful. If you want to be really wild, discuss this with your partner and get his or her feedback on that as well. So again, this is the first of 4 videos that I'm going to be creating on the science of our relationships. My next video is going to be focused on what happens in our relationships when we're not feeling so confident, when we're not feeling so secure, when maybe we had a loving attachment, but things are happening and we're kind of getting disconnected and things are not looking so good, okay? How it impacts us personally, emotionally, and physically, okay? So we're just going to check that out. Again, my name is Bree McCarroll. My company is New England Hold Me Tight, and I would love to be helpful. So if you think that anything that I'm presenting right now might be helpful in your relationship and you're curious to contact me and see if I can be helpful, definitely reach out. My website is www.newenglandholdmetight.com. And also, this is free information, so please share it with others. The more that we understand about human relationships and having good connections, it's only a win for all of us. So if you do Facebook or Pinterest, then look at those buttons below this video and you're going to see, like, I think it's blue one for Facebook. Definitely push that. That helps spread it out to others. Doesn't cost you anything and it only does good. And hey, sharing more positive stuff and more connections is a win for all of us. So thank you for your time. Feel free to leave comments. And I look forward to seeing you next time and talking more about the science behind our connections. Okay, take care for now. Bye-bye.